Welcome to the Emergency Traffic Podcast. Hello and welcome to the Emergency Traffic Podcast, where we talk about firefighter and paramedic line of duty deaths to learn from these tragic events and potentially prevent them from happening in the future. I am Paul, your host, and I'm joined today by my co-host Doug. Dirk and Zach are not available this afternoon. So, hey Doug, how's it going?
Oh, hey, Paul, I'm doing pretty well. Busy life with my wife going back to work now. And so when I'm not at the fire hall, I'm on daddy duty at home. So that's why I missed the last couple episodes, but made some time for this one. And it's nice to just sit here and talk,
Yeah. Well, that's why we have 4 people.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but yeah, work's good. Home's busy. Everything's all good.
Yeah, you've been watching anything? What's happening in sports? You're a big sports fan. The Oilers are...
Watch the Oilers as much as I can. Watch NASCAR here and there if I can. And kind of a little bit pay attention to F1. I mean, there's that series on Netflix there that kind of keeps you hooked on F1. But
Right. Yeah, even my wife liked that one.
22 cars, I can tell you one of 4 that's going to win every week on F1. But
I didn't watch the race this weekend, so I'm not sure what happened. But yeah. Oh,
well, a Red Bull car won. Ooh, surprise.
Okay. I keep wanting one of the underdogs to unseat those guys.
Well, that ain't going to happen.
Or a Ferrari or something.
Yeah.
You
never know, right? But went up to that conference with Dirk there in Grand Prairie, which was good, done some leadership, and just hoping to go to a couple stuff here coming up in September to do some more training. And work's going to get busy in the summer with teaching apparatus stuff, and it's just living the dream, as they say,
Nice. I even get to teach a pump course here coming up soon. I think I haven't got the paperwork yet, but I'm hoping that teaching a pump course maybe in May, which I haven't done for a while for Lakeland College for a client, so a corporate client. So that'll be fun. I haven't done that for a few years, so exercise the old brain. Yeah. I'm still reading that Krupp book about Germany and the steel manufacturer. That's interesting.
Yeah, you must be reading like a page a day because you've been saying you've been reading for the last.
I only read a little. I can't read in bed. I fall asleep immediately. So I typically only read if I have to go to bed early because I got to teach a class in the morning, like I did today. Or on Sunday usually is my reading day. Sunday morning I'll read, a dozen pages or.
I'd like to read more. I have a whole bunch of books that I'd like to get into, but it's hard to. I mean, I want to say it's hard to find the time, but I mean, you make the time, right? But I don't. I could read, and I just find other stuff to do, I guess. But it is
social media and computer games cut into the reading time.
Well, and bath time for the kids, and by the time that's all done, I just want to go to bed.
I don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, that's way past you.
Again, I was on the Beyond the Breakers podcast a few days ago, so that was kind of cool. Love those guys. They've been mentoring us a little bit, and they plug us, so we'll plug them back if you want to learn about shipwrecks and lessons learned and stuff. That's a good way to do it. Okay, this week's incident. We're going to 2018, March 22nd, 2018. 2 male career firefighters, ages 50 and 29, died, and 2 others were seriously injured following a structural collapse while working to extinguish hotspots following a structure fire in a 140-year-old mill building. The previous day, March 21st, the local career fire department was dispatched at 4:14 in the afternoon for a report of a structure fire with possible entrapment. This is in York, Pennsylvania. Most of this information comes from the NIOSH report. The fire department was a combination fire department that provides fire suppression and other emergency services within the city limits where the incident occurred. It serves a population of 443, almost 44,000 residents with an area of about 5.3 square miles. Hey, we'll have to do the math there for 1710 staffing, Doug. During the day, it increases to over 75,000 people. So a lot of people during the day in 5 miles. So that's quite a few people per square mile. The fire department employs 4 platoons that work with a minimum staffing level of only 10 career firefighters per shift, so not many. The fire department currently operates out of 4 stations within the city. Each platoon has an assistant chief as a shift commander and a captain. Each platoon works 2 consecutive 10-hour day shifts and 2 consecutive 14-hour night shifts, followed by 4 days off. Minimum staffing levels and responding fire apparatus at each station include, at the time of the incident, 3 firefighters on engine 1 and a shift vehicle for the assistant chief and the captain, like a buggy. Station 2 has an aerial platform and 3 firefighters. Station 5 has 2 firefighters. Engine 9 has 2 more firefighters, and there's a couple reserve apparatus, an aerial and a truck or an engine.
It's a little different to me there that there's no company officers. It's just the captain that rides with the or drives whatever the assistant chief in the duty vehicle, but the rigs themselves are just firefighters, right?
Yeah, they call them some of them acting captains. So
Oh, I see.
whoever's in the right seat is an acting captain,
Oh.
apparently.
Does that mean they're in charge? Or does that just mean that they turn the siren on the way there?
Yeah, good point. Good
It's
point. Tell them which
and
way to
like
turn.
I've always these fire departments. I shouldn't talk bad about this one without knowing more, but I
No.
would I would think if I was in charge, instead of having two fire stations with an engine each with two firefighters on them, I'd rather just have one with four if it was me. Especially like you're only had said here in 5 square miles.
Yeah, there was a report I read a few years ago. One of the cities in the Okanagan Valley, a consulting company that I know, gave me a copy of the report they wrote, and they had two stations. They had 2 engines staffed with 3 each, and then they had also part time on call that would respond as well. And the report actually said, put your 6 guys in the one truck,
Yeah.
and let the part timers come with the other trucks, because it responding with 3, like, you can't do anything, right? Canmore responded with 2 for a long, long,
Well,
long, long
let's like
time.
this one here. Two firefighters at station 9, two at 5. Like it's
Yeah, what do you
then
do?
I question too, like how come station 1 gets 3 on the engine and the other ones get 2 on the engine? What
Right,
makes station
right.
1 so important? It's
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. The fire department did have a dedicated safety officer till 2012, when the safety officer retired and the position was not filled. So obviously, funding issues, right? At the time of the incident, the fire department employed 1 civilian and 54 uniformed members, including the chief, deputy chief, 5 assistant chiefs, and 5 captains, and 40 career firefighters, and the 2 Fire Prevention Bureau members. In addition, a number of volunteer firefighters supported the department by staffing the air truck, refilling air cylinders, assisting with personnel rehab, and other duties as necessary. 5 of the volunteer firefighters were qualified for interior fire suppression at the time of the incident. EMS provides firefighter rehab at all working fires, hydration, monitoring, etc. Fire department enforces a policy: firefighters must report to rehab after consuming 2 SCBA cylinders to be evaluated for physical status. And all interior firefighters get fit tested annually, which is good. All on-duty firefighters respond when dispatch receives a report of a work or a structure fire within the city. The fire department has a working agreement with nearby combination fire department that responds on all confirmed working fires to provide automatic rapid intervention team support. When a working fire is confirmed, the city automatically recalls 4 off-duty firefighters and 1 officer to provide coverage for the city with an extra rig. The fire department did 3,500 calls in 2017. The call volume had been increasing by approximately 8% annually since 2013. At the time of the incident, the fire department had received a Class 3 rating during the Insurance Services Office Public Protection Classification Survey. So not a 1, which is like the big number ones that are supposed to be really good, and not a 10, which is no fire protection. So a 3. So on the high side of medium. The state of Pennsylvania does not have mandatory minimum training requirements for a firefighter to be an interior firefighter. Oh, so it's like Alberta and most of Canada. You don't have to be trained. You just have to be called a firefighter. I said that out loud, didn't I?
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. It's crazy, right?
They don't want to have to pay for the training.
Yeah, exactly. State of Pennsylvania does not have minimum training requirements for officers either. It's up to each department or authority having jurisdiction to implement the training requirements to meet their own needs. In the state of Pennsylvania, you're required to, though, to receive 36 hours of training each year, so that's good. Fire chief is responsible for setting departmental training requirements. At the time of the incident, this department required a 13-year career fire academy at a local community college, 5 weeks emergency medical, 8 weeks of basic firefighter with previous documented experience could opt out of the EMS training, but not the firefighter training. After completing the 13-week training, Firefighter 1, Firefighter 2 certification, and EMS National Registry as an EMT, they could become active on the fire department. And they get live fire training at a local community college. The incident involved a local fire department, which was called Fire Department 99 in the reports because that's the station number. They have a regional station numbering system. Wow, what a great thought, hey? Only if our local jurisdiction here would do something like that was suggested back in 2010 or 2009 by yours truly, you and I brought that up actually that last week when I was meeting with a local industry guy. Say, remember when we talked about numbering all the fire apparatus in the county this under the same numbering system?
Well, I mean,
And
in your area, it should be more than just your county. It should be everybody that's on your dispatch,
I
whatever.
know, I know.
Like in Calgary, right? Or they just
Yep,
here's your
exactly.
number, here's whatever. But
I know. Anyway, okay. Report of smoke coming from a commercial structure on March 21st, 2018. A box alarm was dispatched. Per standard operating procedures, the entire fire department was dispatched. Following units from Department 99 responded to the initial dispatch. Three engines, one with three and two with four, one truck with four, and two chiefs. The fire chief was the first member on scene, immediately assumed command, radioed dispatch, and reported a working fire. The working fire assignment resulted in the following combination fire department also being dispatched as per automatic mutual aid procedure. So he didn't have to ask for individual units. It's automatic, pre-planned. Isn't that a wonderful thing? 6 engines staffed with 2, 2, 2, and 5. Two trucks with 3 and 6, one rescue with 4, one utility with 2, and 5 more chiefs, including the chief of department. At least it was automatic. The fire occurred. It was a detached 4-story heavy timber type 4 mill building, originally constructed in the 1870s, and from 1882 to 1959, it was the site of an organ and piano manufacturing business. Several additions over the years increased the structure to a 4-story heavy to a building that eventually encompassed 53,000 square feet of floor space. From 59 to 2013, it housed a lumber business and a number of businesses, including an auto parts store, an indoor salvage yard, and a storage facility. At the time of the fire, the structure was vacant and was being heavily renovated for conversion into a 42-unit apartment or condominium complex. The exterior walls were multi-course 3 and 4 course bricks, typical for mill construction of the era. It had a flat roof supported by wooden beams. Large plank floorboards were reported to be up to 3 inches thick. You can imagine, right? Pianos and in there would be heavy floors. The basement area was located on the front alpha side. Recent renovation work included adding a new flat roof with a waterproof membrane under it. A number of commercial air handling units have been added to the roof as part of the renovation to an apartment complex. The exposed wooden beams and original plank flooring were being refinished to highlight the original architecture. It was reported to investigators that the 4th floor, Division 4, was nearly ready for occupancy. The 3rd floor was approximately 60 to 70%. The 2nd floor, Division 2, was roughly laid out with wall studs set in place. Doesn't talk about the 1st floor. The building contained a sprinkler system, but it was inoperative at the time of the fire. Previous building deterioration damaged the piping to the point where water supply to the system had to be shut off. So here we go. Members of the fire department and the fire prevention offices had performed walkthrough inspections of the structure just a few months before in October of 2017 during the initial renovation phase. Following the inspection, the building was added to the fire department's do not enter list. An email notice was sent to all fire department members on October 15th, notifying members that they should not enter the structure under fire conditions. This email notice identified several roof collapses as well as holes rotted through floors in various locations, and identified that the existing sprinkler system was not in service due to breaks in the system.
I wonder how much weight that email would carry in the department. Is it like we suggest you don't go in, or is it like by orders of the fire chief, do not enter this building under any circumstance? Because I think there's a difference in that, right? Like it's one thing if they say, "Hey, don't go in there, please." It's another thing if they're like, "We are ordering you to never go in there under any circumstance." And like we talk about lots, you said earlier that there was possible entrapment in this fire. So if that's where I think it needs to say, like, under no circumstances do you go in there, even if there's possible people, because it's tough to make that decision.
But people were working in there. They were working on the building. So you had workmen and stuff. So how can you say no, we're not going to go in if they're actively working? Although they did say about taking plywood off windows, so I'm not sure if they were actively working. But I mean, another thing here is that the fire department reports that the city had about 25 to 50 similar building of mill construction type that have already been converted into apartment complexes. So this wasn't, I mean, you're right. The email would almost be out of context because, well, we have these everywhere and we deal with them and we've had calls at them before probably. So yeah, you can see that. PPE, they had the typical full PPE, helmet, hood, gloves, leather fire boots. All 4 firefighters that were injured or killed in this were wearing their SCBA. They're all on air. Everybody carried fire department issued portable radios. These items were not a factor in this event at all. The weather was a bit of a factor. It was March in Pennsylvania. They had a snowstorm that area, snow and fog in the area, 31 degrees, so right around freezing, quite humid, with light winds from the northwest. The weather, was at approximately 1500 hours, was clear. The next day it had cleared up a little bit warmer, and the winds were from a little bit more, 16 miles per hour. Let's see. So the fire department was dispatched for the report of fire in a commercial structure with possible entrapment. A snowstorm had recently passed through the area, dropping 10 to 12 inches of snow on the city. Snow continued to fall during the incident, which impacted response times in some cases. All companies on duty in the city were dispatched as per the procedures. Deputy fire chief responded, fire department headquarters, and the first fire department. He was the first to arrive on scene. He observed the Alpha and Bravo sides of the building when he staged his command vehicle on the street in front of the Alpha side. The deputy chief radioed dispatch, assumed command. He told dispatch to upgrade to a working fire, which resulted in the other fire department being dispatched for mutual aid as the rapid intervention team. With other mutual aid units, truck 1 and from another department, and truck 25 from another department. Department 9 is automatically dispatched, as I mentioned before, to all working fires within the city as a RIT team. And because it was a commercial structure fire, it called the other two trucks. The deputy chief began a walk around for a 360, but a chain link fence around the construction site on the Bravo Charlie side prevented a full walk around, but he was able to visualize all 4 sides. The deputy chief became incident commander, radio dispatch, requested automatic callback of additional firefighters as per their SOPs, and for additional resources, 2 more stations to come, or they just arrived at the same time. The truck 1 and responded with 3 firefighters and set up in front of the structure on the Alpha Bravo corner. Truck 5 supplied water to truck 1 from a hydrant north side of the structure. Engine 5 responded from station 5 with 2 firefighters. So we got really low manning here. Lots of trucks, very few people. Engine 9 responded with 2 firefighters. The shift commander, assistant chief, and the shift captain came in the chief's buggy from that same station 1. The assistant chief for fire prevention arrived on scene, assisted with setting up accountability. During the interviews process, It was there were issues with accountability due to so many mutual aid crews arriving on scene. County crews are supposed to report to the incident commander, but many did not report directly, and an effective accountability system was not set up until much later in the incident.
That always used to bug me when I was on Lacombe with you there when we'd have mutual aid, and we did it too when we were going as mutual aid, but it wasn't like run from one guy. Every fire department that came to a call still like, oh, I'm on scene and I'm Lacombe Command. And I always was like, no, you are not. Like,
Yeah.
we're all under whoever's called us as command, and we're just units reporting in under them. They could sector our chief, whoever, off as something, but we don't show up all to the same call and have our own. We don't all just do it our own way, right? They need to be better. When I always thought about like report to the one command and let the one command run the call his way.
What's that called? There's a system that preaches that. I can't remember. Something about incident command, something. Yeah. Good. I like it. Engine 1 staged on the Bravo side, just past the Bravo Alpha corner. Acting officer and firefighter, just two guys, set up a ground monitor near the middle of the structure on the Alpha side, and then they pulled an 1 3/4 pre-connect from Engine 1 and pulled to the front door. Engine 1 acting officer had the nozzle, and the firefighter handled the hose line behind them. 16-20 hours, so we're only like 5 minutes into the incident. They advanced the hose line into the structure. The Engine 1 crew did a right-hand search looking for possible victims since the original dispatch was for possible entrapment. They searched the basement and the first floor, Division 1, never flowed any water. The hose line got stuck on the front door. Engine 1 firefighter, you can imagine dragging a hose with two guys through that building. Went outside, retrieved the thermal imager, and returned inside the structure where he met up with the shift captain in the basement. He's in the basement alone with the hose line. Interior crew reported high heat, moderate smoke, and no visible fire in the areas that they searched. Engine 5 responded with two firefighters and was assigned to supply Truck 1 from a hydrant at the corner of near the fire building. After laying the supply line to Truck 1, the Engine 5 crew was assigned to open up the boarded windows on the Alpha side. So the door was accessible, but the windows were boarded up. They pulled off the plywood, forced open a roll-up door on the Alpha side. Heavy, thick smoke pulled out of the windows after the boards were removed. After opening the windows, command instructed Engine 5 crew to pull another 1 3/4 hand line off of Engine 5 to the man door at the Alpha Bravo corner. Engine 5 officer pulled the hand line, assisted by firefighters from Truck 1 at approximately 16:25, so 5 minutes after Engine 1 crew went in. They entered the structure a short distance and encountered thick smoke. They backed out and were directed to take the hose line, the 250-foot pre-connected 1 3/4, around to the Delta side where they worked the hose line on fire blowing out of the windows. Engine 5 engineer pulled a ground monitor off of Engine 5 and set it up for operation on the Alpha side. Engine 5 acting officer with the Truck 1 firefighters consumed an air cylinder while flowing water on the Delta side, went out to change their cylinders. Crews pulled ground ladders off Engine 1, set them up on the second floor windows of Side A for access. Engine 9, third engine to arrive, responded with two firefighters. Command instruction Engine 9 hit a hydrant on the street adjacent to the Bravo side. A car was stuck in the snow-covered street, which delayed their arrival. Their assignment was changed to assist Engine 1 on the initial hose, making entry on the Alpha side. Engine 9 crew reported seeing fire blowing out of the windows on the Delta side as they walked to Alpha. Two of the Engine 9 firefighters talked to the shift captain at the front door. A 2.5-inch pre-connected uncharged line was already pulled to the front door. Engine 9 firefighters picked up the 2.5 line and followed the Engine 1 crew inside the front door. They advanced to where the stairway had been removed and a new stairway was being formed. The shift captain directed Engine 9 firefighters to take the 2.5 line down to the basement. No fire was visible in the basement, so they returned to the first floor, where they were directed to go back outside, take the hose line around to the Bravo side. They advanced the hose line to the Bravo side, flowed water on visible fire, blowing out the garage door on the Bravo side. While flowing water on the Bravo side, 99 crew observed the Engine 1 acting officer bail out of a Bravo side first floor window. The Engine 1 acting officer had run out of air while searching Division 1, the first floor. Fire conditions rapidly escalated, with fire showing on all four sides of the building. The incident commander radioed the interior crews, the fire's getting worse, and ordered an evacuation. At about 16:34 hours, so they've been there, 15 minutes? Incident commander radioed dispatch requested evacuation tones. Incident commander called for personnel accountability report, but due to issues with radio traffic, he had difficulty getting responses from the crews across the fire ground. During the evacuation, the Engine 1 acting officer had ran low on air and had bailed out. The officer was uninjured, quickly changed out his SCBA after the bailout, and was ready for action. The second offensive interior operations.
No, I mean it sounds like things are starting to go bad here, though. If people are
Go
bailing
south.
out and fire's getting worse.
Yep, exactly. And it's under construction building. My pet peeve: they never follow NFPA 241, all the stuff you're supposed to do, and have monitoring in place to avoid delayed alarms like this one probably was. Engine 1 crew regrouped and talked to the incident commander about re-entering the structure. Can't knock these guys down. Engine 1 acting officer reported to command that he had been involved with the building walkthrough the previous fall and knew the layout of the second floor. The incident commander sent the shift captain, the Engine 1 acting officer, and two volunteer firefighters inside through the Alpha side door to survey the second floor and size up interior conditions. They advanced inside the Alpha door. They proceeded to a ground ladder that was used by construction crews to access the second floor in place of the stairway. The shift captain and one volunteer remained on the first floor, while the Engine 99 acting captain and the other volunteer firefighter moved up the ladder to the second floor. While the firefighters were searching the second floor, the incident commander observed fire conditions getting worse and radioed them to evacuate. I think a lot of this stuff happened about the same time, to evacuate the structure. As the interior firefighters backed out of the structure, there's some confusion as to whether or not all interior firefighters had exited the structure. Incident commander radioed dispatch and requested a third alarm. As crews were backing out of the structure, the shift captain reported to command that a firefighter that was believed to be inside had not come outside and was believed to be on the second floor. Incident command immediately radioed a mayday for a missing firefighter at 16:45. This activated the RIT team from Department 9. While Department 9 was preparing to enter the structure, Engine 99 acting officer teamed up with the Engine 5 acting officer to go inside and look for the missing firefighter. Engine 1 and Engine 5 off.
You keep saying Engine 99, but it's Engine 1.
Sorry. Engine 1. It's the 99 is the station. Yeah, thanks. Engine 1 and Engine 5 acting officers entered the building through the man door on the Alpha side Bravo corner. High heat, near zero visibility due to thick smoke. They climbed up the ground ladder to the second floor, advanced across the second floor about 20 feet. With the Engine 1 officer in the lead, and Engine 5 acting officer became separated from the Engine 1 acting officer in the thick smoke. He yelled out for the Engine 1 acting officer and attempted to find the hose line to follow it out. He yelled out for the Engine 1 acting officer again, but did not get a reply. While crawling on his hands and knees, he came to an unguarded opening in the second floor and dropped through the opening. He was able to roll and fell feet first onto the first floor, injuring his left ankle and left wrist. You can see why there was an email saying, "Don't go in this building in a fire."
For sure, yeah.
He was disoriented but able to find his way to the front door, where he reported to the shift commander that the Engine 1 officer was still on the second floor. At this point, there was confusion as to whether the firefighter or two firefighters were missing. Shift commander ordered Engine 5 acting officer to report to EMS for treatment. He ended up going to the hospital. And then the Engine 1 officer actually came out the front door. I just call them officers even if they're acting. Command attempted to conduct a PAR again. Determined firefighter originally believed to be missing was accounted for, and the RIT entry was canceled almost immediately. He radioed dispatch, canceled the mayday which should have canceled the third alarm, but it wasn't canceled by dispatch. At this point, fire was still blowing out all four sides of the building, so you might as well everybody come to the party. 1658, they radioed dispatch and advised that it would be going to Defensive Operations Incident Command. Engine 5 officer was transported to local hospital. I mentioned that. So day one, defensive operations. So at 5 o'clock, so another hour later, the 65 or 2.5-inch pre-connected line off of engine 1, they advanced it inside the structure, was repositioned to the Bravo side initially. So they set up aerial operations in truck 1 near the Alpha Bravo corner, but was not able to be set at a good angle. Therefore, it was not very effective at hitting the fire coming through the Bravo and Charlie sides. Another station supplied water to an engine which was staged on the street. A ground monitor and 2-inch and 3/4 pre-connected hand lines and a 2.5-inch pre-connected hand line were pulled from engine 9 and operated on the Bravo side. Another engine arrived with a crew of 5 and provided assistance on the Bravo side with hand lines and monitors. Water would knock the fire down, then seconds later the fire would flare back up again. Firefighters reported that when the fire flared up, smoke could be seen sucking back into the building, so ventilation limited fire by the sounds of it. I wonder if the water impact was just a coincidence. It was really vent limited.
Maybe, yeah.
The chimney because of the membrane on the roof. Another crew advanced a 2.5-inch hose line inside the Bravo garage door, about 5 feet. Firefighters were switched to defensive. They discussed a collapse zone. Crews had to re-enter to the collapse zone to pull all the remaining hose lines and the ground monitor. Another truck was positioned on the Bravo side parking lot for master stream operation. Defensive operations were initiated, attempted to complete a PAR. There was difficulty getting PAR due to noises, issues with excessive radio traffic. So, as they say, I put a little blurb in here. The order model command training, whether it's Blue Card or similar like they use in the UK or something, where the communications are much reduced. I think Blue Card guys call it bad news reporting only. Don't tell us good news. Only tell us if there's a problem. Otherwise, you do your tasks and be quiet. It's just ways to try to divide up the command. They talk about it a little bit later in the review about they didn't divide up the channels initially, so everybody was talking.
Sometimes commanders are bad for that because they send you in and then they're, what's your progress report? It's kind of like, shut up, I'm working. I'll tell you when I have something to tell you. They sound like somebody's sitting in there being like, oh, I think I have something important to say, but I'm going to wait till he asks me, right? If you have something to say, you're going to say it. And while we're talking on this, I mean, when there's a PAR going on, like that's almost as important as a Mayday message. And like, unless you have something urgent or a Mayday of your own to call, you shut up and let the PAR happen. You don't need to be talking around a PAR because a PAR is important. You need to know if you have everybody or not.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. And I mean, you don't call it all the time just when you get out. Only when you're called to give a PAR, right? So, yeah, that's good. So more trucks came, third alarm. Some were canceled, some were put in service. Crews on side Bravo began noticing cracks developing on the side Bravo exterior wall. Truck 1 officer radioed that the exterior wall was beginning to crack, and they repositioned the truck out of the collapse zone. Approximately 10 minutes after Truck 1, 89-1, was repositioned, a large portion of the rear of the structure, Bravo and Charlie and Delta side, collapsed. Command began relieving crews from neighboring Department 99 the first department for the next shift change around 17:30 hours. They've been there for 2-3 hours. Defensive operations continued throughout the night with hose lines and master streams deployed for exterior operations on all four sides of the structure. Ground monitors and elevated master streams were repositioned as necessary. Around 2200 hours, the deputy chief transferred command to the C shift commander and left the fireground to go home. Mutual aid crews were gradually released. Day 2 defensive operations starting in the morning. The deputy fire chief returned to the defensive fireground about 7:30 hours, assumed command from the C shift assistant chief. The engines were staged, they're flowing water, etc. The building owner had a track hoe machine brought in to support fire suppression operations to dig through piles of brick and debris to uncover hotspots so that water application would be more effective. The fire chief and the city building official also arrived on scene to meet with the building owner. The building owner called in his own engineer to evaluate the structural stability and determine if the remaining portion of the building could be saved. The engineer arrived at 10:30. The incident commander and city building official and the building owner entered the structure through that side alpha door to visually inspect the interior. They were able to visually inspect the interior of the remaining structure on both Division 1 and Division 2, first and second floors. The only access to Division 3 and 4 was via the elevator shaft, which was located in the collapsed area. It was reported to NIOSH investigators during interviews. The engineer stated the remaining structure was stable based on the visual observations. This could not be confirmed as the building owner did not respond to NIOSH inquiries. But they couldn't get up there because the elevator had been gone. Deputy Chief briefly left the fireground to get foods for crews, and the fireground after transferring command to assistant. Upon returning to the fireground, Deputy Chief assumed command again. Discussed the need to get inside the structure to extinguish hotspots burning in the roof and ceiling areas on Division 3 and 4. Following the initial collapse the previous evening, large portions of the recently installed waterproof roof membrane hung down and prevented master streams from reaching these burning hotspots. The decision was made to use the elevating platform so firefighters could extend a hose line from the platform into the third and fourth floors to extinguish the burning hotspots. 2 firefighters had been called in to work overtime, were assigned the task of extending a hose line into the fourth floor of the remaining structure to find and extinguish hotspots. Truck was positioned Alpha Delta corner. 2 firefighters and the incident commander entered the aerial platform. The platform was raised above the roof and water was directed to a few visible hotspots. Then the platform was lowered to a fourth floor window on the Alpha side. The IC instructed 2 firefighters, both who were working overtime, assigned to relieve the other crew, to search for burning hotspots in the ceiling and walls while staying back from the edge of the collapse area. Incident commander remained in the platform bucket. I'm not sure about the incident commander in the bucket, but I guess if you're going to put guys in a very tenuous situation, you want to be there.
Yeah, unless he feels like he needed to be up there for a better view of what's happening.
Better evaluation of the structural stability,
Yeah.
I'm thinking.
Like the old school engines that had the command platform that went up.
Don't think I've seen any of those.
Oh, I've seen a few in like old apparatus Facebook groups, old Ford engines that have like a scissor lift behind the cab that goes up as a command perch.
Okay. I'll have to find that one. You'll have to point one out to me. So 3 firefighters working overtime. They climbed the aerial ladder to assist. A 4th was assigned to carry SCBA bottles from the ground to the platform. They changed from exterior defensive now to interior offensive operations. A dedicated RIT team was not in place, and a mutual aid company for RIT support had not been requested. The 2 Truck 1 firefighters changed their air cylinders and returned to work on the 4th floor. At this point, 4 firefighters and the shift commander were on the 4th floor to extinguish hotspots. All 5 firefighters were fully dressed in PPE, SCBA, and on air. One of the Truck 1 firefighters ran low on air, went to the window to speak with the incident commander to get an extra SCBA cylinder through the window, while the other 3 firefighters and the shift commander continued to work in the hotspots. Approximately 15 hours, the rear portion of the standing structure, Delta and Charlie sides, closest to the collapse area that collapsed previously, collapsed, dropping the 3 firefighters and the shift commander to the ground and burying them in a debris pile of bricks and timbers. During the NIOSH review process, it was reported that the firefighters working on the floor worked cautiously and were conscious and observant of the previous collapse and stayed at least 10 feet from the edge of the collapse area while working. The surviving firefighters reported hearing 1 or possibly 2 loud cracking sounds immediately before the collapse. So the aerial is actually on the opposite side. It's on the Alpha, right? And they were working through to the other side of the building, the Delta Charlie, where the collapse was. At the time of the collapse, the 2 firefighters who climbed the area ladder with shift commander were working the hose line. The engine one acting officer was backing them up on the hose line. A third firefighter was also in there pulling ceiling, and the shift commander was observing their work in progress. Following the collapse, the incident commander immediately radioed a mayday, requested a second alarm assignment. Radio dispatch reported structural collapse with firefighter entrapment. The incident commander radioed for mass casualty event, which automatically dispatched 5 ALS ambulances and 5 more BLS ambulances. At 15:17, the firefighter who had been pulling ceiling was able to reach his radio and reported he was trapped and could not get out, but there was no fire burning in the immediate area where he was trapped. The fire chief, who'd been on the Delta side, had witnessed the collapse, radio dispatch, and requested the county advanced technical rescue team be dispatched. So that was a good thing, at least, is they called for lots of collapse resources. The thing that maybe was a bit of a factor in the Baltimore call, where that was sort of delayed, the collapse rescue guys. So that was good. The aerial platform was lowered, and all firefighters on scene immediately rushed to the collapse area. Firefighters found the shift commander, who was stunned and bleeding from a head wound. He was initially unable to move, the truck 1 firefighter, but was able to move his arms to reach the radio so he could call in. He continued to move as much as he could until he was able to start digging himself out of the debris pile. At about 15:26, they radio dispatched that 2 of the firefighters had been located. At least 1 pass alarm could be heard under the debris pile as rescue crews continued to search for the remaining firefighters. They quickly located the engine 1 acting officer, who was unconscious. He was trapped by a large wooden beam across his legs. Chainsaws and rescue saws were used to cut through a number of wooden beams and planks. The waterproof membrane hindered rescue process and bogged down the chainsaws multiple times before he could be extricated and removed from the debris pile. He was transported at approximately 15:30 hours to local hospital, where he was pronounced dead. A pastelight and lower alarm could still be heard further down in the pile, where the hose line was buried. The remaining portion of the side delta wall was leaning outward. A firefighter was positioned in the elevated truck 1 platform to monitor the building, while crews on the ground worked to locate the last trapped firefighter. And I put a little note in there. Can you imagine, like, what's the procedure? What's he supposed to do? At what point? What was his trigger point to call the rest of them off? Another crack or movement or what? So that would be a tough assignment. And how do you communicate it quickly and effectively? 15:36, command radio dispatch. They're working on freeing the last trapped firefighters. Rescue crews continued to move debris by hand until the 4th firefighter was located. And the incident commander radio dispatched that they had everyone accounted for. The firefighter was extricated, transported to hospital in trauma arrest, where he later died. Cardiopulmonary resuscitation was performed on both victims on scene and in transit, so they were both coded. The 2 injured firefighters were also transported to local hospitals and treated for non-life-threatening injuries. The department was taken out of service by command, and in all firefighters to report to the city hall for debriefing and counseling. Contributing factors were building under renovation with an inactive sprinkler system, and I'm assuming an inactive alarm system or detection system, which is a bit of a peeve of mine, because you can get wireless, remote, battery-powered alarm systems that will communicate and monitor all kinds of conditions inside construction sites. So that's a bit of a pet peeve that wasn't to get earlier notification. Long burning, deep-seated fire could not be reached by exterior streams. Previous partial structural collapse. Firefighters entering collapse zones following defensive operations. Potentially an inadequate risk versus gain analysis. Both firefighters died from multiple blunt force trauma and asphyxia. Accidental. Recommendations. Ensure a collapse zone is established and properly managed and enforced by the division supervisor and or assistant safety officer. Command should also consider designating exclusion zones or no entry zones as needed due to dangerous or hazardous conditions. In this incident, defensive operations were declared at 1800 hours and less than 2 hours after they first arrived on scene. All firefighters were evacuated from the structure, and suppression operations were exterior only. Defensive operations continued through the night and throughout the next day. Collapse zone was established sometime during the evening hours, but firefighters had to enter the collapse zone to retrieve hose line, move ground monitors. The following day, the city building official, building owner, etc., they did an inspection and they decided that it would be okay. Civilian contractors also entered the collapse zone with excavation equipment to attempt to dig out hotspots burning within the debris pile of the building collapse. I don't know, Doug. I'm kind of saying let it burn.
Oh yeah, like
Why are
you
you
and I
there?
have disagreed before on going into a building or not going into a building, and this is like agree with Paul Day, I guess, because
I guess.
I mean, part of the building already collapsed,
Yeah,
so the building's a write off, right? Like the part that hasn't collapsed is on fire, and you've been pouring water on it for a day and a half.
right.
There's nothing left to save. If it like by now, if anybody's in there, they're dead. So what do you like? You're why? What's the point of going in to put out hotspots? Like just
Yeah,
like if the thing's still standing and you got to get out exposed areas, push it in, tear it down with a track hoe, drown the thing with your exterior your tower ladders, whatever. But like you're not, yeah, risk a little to save or risk a lot to save a lot. That like you're not saving anything. This is one where you lost. Sorry, we lost this fire, right? Like just
yeah. It
you're
was
gaining
gone.
nothing
It
by
was.
sending guys in there, and you're
It's
risking
okay. We're gonna.
everything as it shows, right?
Uh, yeah. We'll just go. We'll just go in from the bucket and get in there. Maybe the Bronto could have went over the wall and into the roof area. Maybe that would have
Sure.
worked better. But don't put guys in there. I can't.
I mean, you can, yeah, like you could put a tower ladder down that's not a Bronto and spray up from the thing. Like, there's lots of different ways you can do it, but I couldn't imagine having to be a fire chief telling a widow, "Well, I'm sorry your husband died," and she says, "Oh, what was he doing? Putting out hot spots on a building that already collapsed once."
Right. Yeah.
That's
It was
pretty bad.
overhaul. Died during overhaul. Uh, Fire departments should ensure that all firefighters are trained and recognize the importance of situational awareness. This 140-year-old heavy timber mill building that was being renovated quickly escalated to a conflagration. Partial collapse occurred at 1800 hours. Defensive operations until the next afternoon. Hotspots continued to burn, so they could not be reached by exterior master streams. People went on the fourth floor with a hand line attempting to extinguish hotspots while a collapse occurred. Why? You know, this doesn't make sense.
Well, and like this recommendation is a little, I don't love the wording where sure all firefighters are trained in and recognize the importance of like uh, the way that our system works with the chain of command. It is when you're a firefighter or a captain and the chief in command is saying go up there and put the hotspots out, you're trusting a little bit that they're using all the reasons they became the fireground commander, be it experience or
Right.
education or whatever, to say, I think this is a safe thing to do. And yeah, I know within OHS or whatever the American version is, like you have the right to refuse unsafe work. And but like when the chief says go up there and put it out, most firefighters are going to go, okay, chief. Now, if the chief says, hey, go take a head dive off the tower ladder and hope something good happens, they're going to say no. But this, like, when you got to trust that the people in command have a little bit of knowledge and whatever, and they're thinking about all this before they tell you to go do something. So you kind of
There
just
was
say,
a
okay, I'll go.
there was a Facebook post today. I don't know what it just said. It's all about trust, and it was a picture of the late Chief Brunacini sitting
Sure.
there in his younger when he was still full time chief of Phoenix, saying it's all about trust. And yeah, those guys are trusting command, knows what they're talking about. They had engineers here. They looked at it. It's going to be okay. You're
Yeah.
not going to question that. You're going to do it most likely. There was another incident, and maybe one of our listeners can point it out. There was an incident. I think it was in Texas where a chief ordered crews into a well burned building already to do more overhaul or investigation or something like that. And the guy either refused and there was a big kerfuffle about it, or he did go in and it collapsed, and they said after that he knew, he had told somebody this is a crazy move. I can't remember which call it is. We'll have to find that one. And it was like several chief officers or senior officers debating this move. So you're absolutely right. And like you say, the chief should be aware, not all firefighters, because obviously this is on command, and in my opinion anyway, ultimately responsible for this action to save a building that's already gone. What a waste. The next recommendation is, state, local, municipal governments, building owners, authorities having jurisdiction consider requiring the use of sprinkler system in commercial structures, including during renovation work. Like, no duh, 140-year-old, 53,000 square foot, 4-story building with a sprinkler system, and they letting them work on it and it doesn't work. It's not operational yet. This is nuts. It would have been the first thing to do, right?
But if it's not law, they're not going to do it. It has to be law, or else people aren't going to spend money they don't have to spend.
I'd have to look at NFPA 241 as to what it says about that, whether it should be operational or not.
That's why buildings under construction are some of the most dangerous things we can go to, because nothing has to meet fire code until it's done. Right? Like when it's
There are requirements. There are requirements in NFPA 241, but many jurisdictions do not enforce it or require builders to do it. Look at the bank fire in New York,
New
right?
York, yeah.
That's one we have to do as well. Deutsche Bank? No, what was it?
Yeah, yeah.
Deutsche Bank
Deutsche Bank,
Tower.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Let's see, RIT crew. They didn't even have a RIT crew. They're interior. They've gone back inside, and they didn't have a RIT crew there. Yet they had a RIT crew policy, but they were lulled in this. We're defensive. We're not inside. It's okay. We don't
I
need
can
them.
understand that though, right? When you show up and you're doing aggressive interior firefighting, and the RIC crew's here and we're doing everything right, and then we're going, okay, let's stand back, let's spray water. I mean, New York always has the fast truck there, if no matter what they're doing, right? But I'm sure lots of departments are like, we're just spraying from tower ladders. We don't need a RIC crew. Go back in service. And they just had the absence of mind to say, well, we're going to go back in. We need a RIC crew back here, right?
Yeah, yeah. They changed their strategy and they didn't
Yeah,
follow through on it.
yeah.
Announce it and everything else.
Which is kind of weird to go from offensive to defensive back to offensive. Like
I
it's
mean, it does happen, but you have to weigh the risks and the values, which is the recommendation number
yeah.
one, which is weigh the risks right away. Maybe it's the next one. I don't know. The next recommendation, of course, they talk about ensure all firefighters, company officers, and chief officers are trained to follow proper radio discipline while operating at a fire. At this incident, number of people reported they couldn't get through on the radio because everybody was talking, transmissions not being heard, etc. Too many firefighters were not assigned to the fire ground were talking on the fireground channel. So they had lots of people there and they're all chatting, and that you can't have that chit chat on the fireground channel. Use another channel.
Hey, at
They
least they weren't
actually
talking to. At least they weren't worrying about school bus drivers and snowplows.
right on the dispatch channel, right? They had requested actually to move. They attempted to move the channel, but they had issues. It didn't happen or something like that. I'm not sure why. Radio discipline, I think, was the problem.
In my experience, like people say too much on the radio. Like you don't need to talk on the radio all the time. It's like
Yeah, verbal diarrhea.
part of one now. It's basically only the officers talk on the radio, which is, I mean, still sometimes there's a little extra chatter. But I remember reading a book from New York, and a new firefighter in Rescue 2, and he talked on the radio all the time at the one fire, and his captain grabbed his radio and took his battery out of his radio and put them in two different pockets and said, you only need to talk on the radio if it's a mayday, and by then it's too late anyways because your battery's not on your radio. I'm not saying do that, but it's the
No.
point that he proved, like, you don't need to say every single thing on the
Yeah.
radio. You need to say what's important. And I mean, this is tough because it seems like we said earlier, whoever rode the right seat to the call was the officer, quote unquote. So how much
Today.
training and all that do they have? When you have defined company officers that maybe in their officer training, get some radio training. You don't just say what's pertinent, right? And especially when there's a par going on or a Mayday event going on, that's time to shut up.
Yeah, and it says it right in here in the next recommendations. Ensure appropriate staffing levels are available on scene to accomplish the fireground tasks and unexpected emergencies. The fire department operates with one captain per shift. A permanent officer is not assigned to each company. Fire apparatus respond with a crew of firefighters who rotate through firefighter, driver, and company officer positions, however often they rotate. So,
But
so yeah, you're absolutely right.
I question
How
what
do
that
you
means.
train
Like,
them?
is it you're in the company officer position, meaning that's just the seat you ride in the truck, or does it mean anything? Right? Like, is it just
Yeah. But how do you train them, right? That's the big
yeah?
thing. And I mean, the biggest thing about
You should run your
blue
company officers. You need a chain of command. It can't be a flat line. You need a little bit of because then it's like we talked in Baltimore about the too many people reporting to one person. Well, if all these trucks don't have an officer and it's just firefighter, like who do they all report to, kind of thing, right?
Well, I think they
And,
call them acting officer and they operate that
yeah,
way, but they don't have the training and
sure.
they're not always in that position. So right away, if you're somebody who was the acting officer last shift, you're going to be tempted to hop on the radio and say, "Hey, Joe, bring me that, whatever." Right? So
And a big thing on that recommendation number 6, it says accomplish fireground tasks. A lot of fire departments are good at sending enough firefighters to accomplish fireground tasks, but it says and be available for unexpected emergencies, which a lot of fire departments are not good at having. It's like Chief McGregor said about Bryan, Texas. They learned we got to have players on the bench in case something happens. Like we have to. Sure, you have your first alarm and they're all working. That's great. 99 times out of 100, they're going to put the fire out and go home. But for the one other time, you need the other guys on the bench ready to go.
right, yeah. I know Blue Card uses the three deep model or something like for every crew's inside, there's another crew on deck and there's another crew waiting and staging so that you've got some depth to your bench. Exactly. And I was going to say, and mostly that's what these command training programs, whatever they're called, whichever ones you want to pick, is they teach radio procedure. They teach the radio protocol. And I know you do the sim labs on the first day during the scenarios. You can't get on the radio because everybody's trying to talk. By the third day, you're doing more complex incidents, and there's radio silence
Yeah.
because everybody's doing their stuff and they know when they're supposed to talk. And so that's a training.
It's tough to convince fire chiefs and admin people and the mayors, like, especially in these maybe more rural areas or smaller cities, like, why are we calling mutual aid from 2 towns away to be here just in case? Right, and it's like in your neck of the woods, the department south of you there, we always said send them for a fire. If we don't need them, we'll send them home. And it's
Right.
it's kind of like I 100% agree, but I also understand the mindset of like, why are we going to another call they're not going to use this at? And do you worry that eventually they just don't come until they hear it's a real fire, right?
They talked about firefighters trained in fireground survival procedures. It was good. The one firefighter freed his hand and was able to call a mayday and report conditions. So that was good. But they just point out that people need to know those procedures and take that training. And of course, number 9 is define the fireground strategies and tactics for an occupancy that are based on SOPs. Incident commanders should base the strategy on the community risk assessment, the building occupancy, pre-incident planning, critical building information, staffing, and available resources. There's no way for this incident. The department did not have a pre-incident plan for the facility, even though it had been inspected. There was an email saying firefighters on the prevention bureau had walked through and was determined it was unsafe, but they ignored that anyway.
Well, it should have been a pretty big red flag when you go in there to go up to the second floor and it's a ground
And
ladder instead of
stairways are
stairs,
gone.
right? Like
Yeah,
it that yeah.
yep, exactly. They talked about personnel accountability system, check-in, check-out procedure, especially for mutual aid. We talked about that already. Ensure initial risk assessment is performed and continuous risk assessment. And that's where it fell down. They may have made that initial risk assessment going, okay, well, let's have a look at this. Let's give it a college try. But then when things went way south all night long, you're pouring millions of gallons of water on this thing, and it's partially collapsed. And then that's where the risk assessment fell down. Why are you going back in?
Ongoing risk assessment would be a really good job for a safety officer.
Right. Doesn't mention safety officer here.
The position they had and didn't fill.
Right, exactly. So use ICS and name somebody. Okay, you, Joe, you're safety
Sure.
today, right? But they didn't do that.
But they don't even have guys to be officers of the company. Never mind one to be the safety officer.
Yeah, you're right. They talk about standard operating procedures. I guess these departments, they do lots of mutual aid together, but they don't actually train together. And that's always a downfall in that you need to train together so you're familiar with systems, terminology, equipment, capabilities, everything. That came up in the Baltimore thing too, was being familiar with each other.
Well,
It's come up before.
even the FDNY trains with its surrounding fire departments.
Yeah.
And if they can do it, anybody can do it.
That's right. Good. That's about all we had on this one. It's just it's such a blatant example of tunnel vision, I guess you would call it, or something. We're going to get this out. We're going to save this building.
And it's probably like we've done, like you said, they have 25 or 50 buildings like this in town. Probably had fires in them. We've done this before. We'll do it again. Everything will be okay. And this time it wasn't, right? It's a common theme on all of our podcasts of you did it this way before and it worked, and this time it chose not to work, right?
Yep, we're going to do a tailboard talk about common themes and stuff that we've come up with over the last year. It's coming up in the queue here eventually. But yeah, thanks a lot for listening to another emergency traffic podcast. We appreciate your interest and I hope you find them interesting and informative. Give us a star, a like, a thumbs up on the app, whatever app you use to listen to us. That means a lot to us, and it helps the algorithms pick who show it to other people. You can follow us on Twitter, Podcast Traffic, or our Facebook page, Emergency Traffic Podcast, and you can email us at emergencytrafficpodcast.com or at gmail.com. Be safe.
Yeah, sounds good. See you at the next one.